Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Hey up gang, welcome back to this exciting episode. I say that every week, don't I? But they're always exciting. We're really delighted to welcome three people that represent the ACT, Adventure Country Tracks. They're here pretty much due to popular demand. We've had quite a few people ask about the ACT. It's something we didn't know very much about, but it's something that I think a lot of people that listen to this podcast will find really useful. So we're really pleased to say that we've got three people from the ACT here. We've got Mirko Nagler, Martin Wickett and Jonathan Bentman, probably a more familiar name for those of you like me that used to read TBM back in the day. And they're here to tell us all about the ACT, Adventure Country Tracks. I'm also delighted to say that as Noel is still away in Spain on yet another trip, I've managed to convince one of the TAMP podcast exec committee, Adam Faraday, to help with hosting this podcast. And before we dive into the podcast, I also want to mention the companies that are sponsoring the ACT, putting their money where their mouth is to support our hobby and make sure we retain the trails for as long as we need them. So thank you to Touratech, Nex Helmets, Yamaha, Good Souls, Harley Davidson, Metzeler, Senna, Motorex, Revit, Overlanders.ie, 1000 PS and Edelweiss Bike Travel. Cheers, guys. Here we go. The ACT was something that a few people have mentioned on the podcast, and also a few listeners have said it'd be really good to understand a little bit more about it. Hence this opportunity to do a recording tonight. I'm really grateful everybody could join us.
My name is Martin. I'm working in the industry, in the motorcycle industry, for about 15 years now. Prior to that, I've done a long trip, actually. I've traveled Panamericana between 2004 and 2006. Obviously, this led me into this business. I have a marketing background, worked for Polo Motorrad, a German accessory company beforehand, then worked for 12 years now for Touratech, being the CMO right now, being responsible for sales, marketing, and logistics there. 7-8 years ago, it came to our mind that we really want to keep the riding in Europe alive, the off-road riding, the adventure riding alive, and together with Mirko and Elvio Andrade, who's now my international sales manager, we decided to find a way to keep those adventure rides alive. And this is the idea behind it. So we came together. We started that in Portugal about 7-8 years ago. After 2 years, we decided to bring that, or to not make that a Touratech project, but to found something like a foundation. It's a German foundation because there's nothing like this in the European law, so we had to find a country to do that. Start a foundation to make that neutral to all partners in the industry to join in. Since then, we're working on this, trying to keep that stuff alive.
What sort of riding do you do, Martin?
I started back then when I was 18, actually traveling with an old chopper up to the North Cape. Probably 3 years later, I bought one of the old Africa twins, the RD07s. Started traveling with that. Traveled again the North Cape, Italy, Spain, Portugal, all these countries. After quitting my job in 2003-04, doing the Panamericana with that bike as well, pretty much stayed on the dual purpose bikes.
Mirko, do you want to go next?
I'm Mirko.
My pronunciation was very poor.
Yeah, I know it's difficult in English. Just call me Miracle, that's easier. I'm Mirko Nagler. I'm still in my young 46. I'm riding motorcycles since I'm 11, I guess. I learned it on a farm in Austria. And I'm addicted to two wheels since then. At the time that we started our first ACT, it was 2015. I was just joined at Senna and made the European business here for the communication company. And at this time, it was a marketing activity which we decided to go for. And later on, it turned out what it is now. It's a great community. I really enjoy this. I'm riding several bikes. I did road racing on several bikes, on Aprilia, Kawasaki, Yamaha, but I also enjoy the dual purpose off-road riding. I had an Africa Twin and I still have an Africa Twin. I did a world trip as well, like Martin, for 2 years in 14-15. It's actually the time when I met Martin the first time. I'm glad I done it because having done a world trip gives you a totally different view on riding motorcycles and how big this community globally is and how well connected motorcycle riders are globally. I think that's one of the spirit that we also want to share with the ACT, and we already see this happen. We have a very pan-European, if not even global membership if you look at the country share, and that's fantastic to see. And I'm glad that people are using this opportunity to make those trips very easy plannable, and they know what they have to expect. And I think that's the way to move on, because the off-road riding will disappear more and more because countries are cutting down those roads. So we need to keep this alive.
My name, Jonathan Bentman, journalist, formerly a chartered surveyor, changed to journalism in 1996, working in New Zealand at the time, and started on their national motorcycle magazine there. Prior to that, when we see trials, road racing, bit like Milko there, bit of everything really. Always tried, enduro, love that. So yes, I got involved right at the beginning, didn't I, Martin? What year was that? Is that 2018? I'm trying to think what year. 2016, yeah. I was there for the Portugal one on the scouting ride, mostly as a photographer on that one, as I recall. I've come to enjoy adventure like the other chaps, sort of kind of indirectly, I suspect. It probably came more through the journalism, and then the moment I discovered it, I think the turning point for me was 2008 when I went to Morocco, rode an XR 650 around and about the old magazine called TWO. You might remember that one. A solo adventure. The XR 650 was epic, kept sort of cutting out, braking, and I went over the bars at one point trying to dodge a truck, all the usual kind of things that happen. It's a wonderful, when something just grabs you, things that happen there. I remember turning up and the man who lent me the XR 650 said, so you got a map? And I sort of shook my head. So, so you got a GPS? And I shook my head again. What have you got? Well, so what? Nothing really. I was just going to kind of follow the road.
Pure charm. That'll get you through.
I turned up, I had a BMW suit and a rucksack, and that was it. And I hadn't really organized anything. I just thought I'd just wing it. 5-6 days later, it was, bitten deep. And bearing in mind, I've had a history of enduro, road racing and stuff. It was definitely a completely new avenue. Really exciting. And since then, so I've sort of stuck with it, I think, since then. But the ACT is something that feels heartfelt. Working with these guys, there's this sort of act of giving back to the community. We all take something, if you like, through the industries we work in, even if it's journalism. I take a wage from it. The ACT is a fantastic thing where we can share some of the things that we can provide, if you like. I've always liked it for that.
You have the same year when you started with adventure riding than me, was 27, 28. Actually, Charlie, who is now one of the brand ambassadors for ACT. Luckily, he got involved last year, and now he's part of the ACT crew. He and Ewan was actually the reason why I started to do adventure riding. And I remember my first trip it was a GS 1150 adventure, and my first trip when I was from the sport bikes position to the upright position, and was doing the same tour I used to do. And now I saw all those beautiness in the landscapes because I was not focused on the road anymore. This was kind of my turning point to be dual purpose bikes.
A wise move. You can do both, though. You can do all these things. You can have many bikes in several garages and do lots of two-wheeled activities. Certainly on this podcast, I think in the UK as a whole, we're probably more familiar with the Trans-Euro Trail, the TET. Tell us more about the ACT and how it differs from the Trans-Euro Trail.
And is that something you get compared to a lot? I'm guessing this is a comparison that's been made a few times.
We're getting compared a lot with the TET, and that is absolutely okay. I mean, these guys are enthusiastic people, and they're doing a great job with the linesmen throughout Europe. The main difference here is the ACT is first really scouted in a 100% legal way. So what we're trying to make 100% sure that all the tracks that we do are allowed to be ridden. And the second point is that we try to make sure that all these tracks can be ridden on adventure bikes. A lot of TET tracks are very beautiful parts, but they are more hard to ride. You should probably use more like a sport or a track bike instead of an adventure bike. while we are definitely targeting those customers riding let's say a Tenere 700 and going up to a 1250 GS or something like this, we try to make sure that you're capable to do that with luggage, with off-road capabilities, of course, with off-road tires, having the adventure spirit in mind, doing multi-day tracks. And what we try really to do is we try to make sure that you can ride that adventure country trek in 5 days. So the idea behind this originally is that you have maybe a week, more money than time probably, so you have a weekend to go to that place, let's say 2 days to reach that destination. You have 5 days of riding, you have 2 days to go back home, and all of that you want to do on your bike. So if you have an adventure bike, you probably use the highway or use country roads on tarmac to go to that place. Then you have, let's say, 50, 60, 70% off-road, doing about 1200 kilometers in 5 days, enjoying the adventure, and then from the target where you reach the end of the ACT, you can go back home. And this is your little compact adventure that you can do with friends, that you should do with friends. You shouldn't do it alone, and that you can really experience the beauty of nature, the people, rural roads, rural countryside. So we really try to avoid the touristy places, not always possible, but really to bring tourism to remote places. Of course, we want to do some highlights in between, but especially when you look at the ACTs in Portugal, the ones in Romania, also the ones in Greece, we try to reach locations where the tourism normally doesn't go, but the rider, having a bit of money, having short time frame, wants to stay in those rural places, in the pensions, in the rurales, and all these little hotels maybe, and make a difference there, and really want to enjoy loneliness, nature, and people.
Which doesn't mean that an adventure country trek isn't partly hard. Just because we're using big bikes doesn't mean it's like just tarmac and easy going. No, we do have parts which are tricky, which are maybe uncomfortable. And I know, Clive, you told me that big bikes is kind of you're mostly doing jokes about big bikes. I can tell you with those big bikes, we can do much more than people would expect. I would say in every trek, we have parts where most people on a small bike would say, oh, no, you can't go here. It's only for us, for the small CCs. No, those big bikes can handle a lot of hard stuff, which is interesting. And one more to add to Martin is that by passing in those areas without tourism, we enable those restaurants and hotels, pensions to stay alive. We got comments. I think it was Romania, no, Martin, or Greece.
There's one campground, for example, that was only open half a year, combined with a restaurant in Portugal that now stays open for the whole year. We have the same in Romania, where this one place stays open 9 months instead of 6 months. So they do get feedback that a lot of riders go there, and they're open to this, and these business can survive more or better than they have done it before.
Are you getting feedback? There's considerable numbers of people doing the routes. Then are you aware of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, we do see the download rate of the routes. And Mirko, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have downloaded about 20,000 times.
We're above 30,000 now.
You see, so the response is pretty cool, and probably not all of them are riding it, but we do get pictures sent from the people. We have a Facebook group, we have kind of a community in the meantime, and they really want to report back what they have done. They want to send us pictures, they want to show us what they have done. We are very happy to see that feedback, and we do get feedback from the riders, definitely, but we also get feedback from the hotel, sometimes even the mayors of the towns we try to talk with, and even the tourism boards that we are trying to connect to, because I mean, this is the idea of the foundation in the end. I mean, one is to make the people go riding there, but the other thing is that we try to talk to the local entities to keep those roads maintained, to keep those roads open. Not everybody loves us to be there, so this is why we're trying to work with a very strict code of conduct to tell people to behave on those tracks, because we are sharing those tracks sometimes with open traffic, sometimes just with bicycle roads or something like this, but all legal. And of course, like everywhere in the world, not everybody's happy. Sometimes farmers don't like it too much, but we try to talk to most of them and try to connect with the locals to make sure that they keep those roads open. Of course, we try to ride mostly on connecting roads, that are off-road, but nevertheless, especially in countries, you know that from the UK, you have all these fences that you need to open and close, where the animals shouldn't go through and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, sometimes you need to talk to a farmer and to ask for permission if it's good or if it's not good. The same case in Romania and Greece and in all of the countries. This is what the idea is all about, that they understand what the idea is behind and that they are positive with us.
Can I just say, we actually do quite like big bikes, but we've all got big bikes as well. A lot of people that listen to the podcast, their first exposure to, everybody talks about Ewan and Charlie, of course, and a lot of people, that's their first introduction to adventure biking, certainly in the UK, and I'm sure in a lot of other countries. So I think the ACT, for those people that have got the 890s or the 1200s, is absolutely a fantastic resource for them to go riding. And in fact, myself and Noel and Bruce Teapot One Smart are actually going to ride the UK ACT. He said he would do it. We're going to hold him to it on his big BMW GS, and we might go on our big bikes as well, just to show that it can be done.
Nice.
I think it's a great resource, and you've currently got 6 countries, UK, well, 5 countries plus the Pyrenees, UK, Portugal, Italy, Romania, and Greece. Now, I would imagine and hope that list will be growing.
We're starting on June 25th. To the next movie.
Is this a trip, or are you actually starting to edit the film then?
We're starting the trip and filming, recording. The scouting was done, I would say, 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the media pre-run was done 2 weeks ago. And then end of June, beginning of July, we're doing the movie shoot.
Is it a secret?
It is a secret due to one reason. We really do not want to have people interfere there. The movie making, and this is, I mean, we do 45 to 60 minutes movie there. And of course, we try to bring more and more industry players in to join us, to understand that topic, to help us, of course, to do that. Not only the project, but also the foundation to support that. We love to have people watching the movie, of course, and then riding afterwards, but not interfering or giving us a hard time, because I do understand that a lot of people want to join that, and this is great. I'm very happy about that. But during filming, this is a very strict schedule. If you've done a movie or just a little bit of a movie yourself, you know that this is hard work, fun work, but hard work, and you need to stay very disciplined, especially when you're in a group of 12 riders. This is why it's kind of a secret. But we do have to answer that. We do have pretty much of a plan for the next 10 years. If we do get the support by all the players in the industry and of course the members that support us, then we try to continue doing that for the next 10 years.
What support do you get from the industry?
Let's roll back to 2015-16 when we had our first chats. When you have new products, you need to test them. You need to do a photo shooting. You need to do a video shooting. This means you need to have riders. You need to have bikes. You need to have a location, a media team, and the product shipments and all this. So do it just for yourself is a huge invest. So we decided to do something different and we, create a movie and do product testing, production of content all together. It was Senna, it was Touratech and Suzuki. So this was the first initial idea of this marketing project, which pretty soon turned into this is more than marketing. But basically the companies are using ACT to create content, to show that their product is rough enough to do a trip like this. For example, Harley-Davidson, their reason to join us was to show the community that the Pan America is doable for off-road riding. That was their main reason. And then they get all those content, which they can use for commercial, for whatever. Now in my new position at Next Helmets, we're using this to make actual real tests on new products coming. There is no better way than, testing it with 12 to 13 crazy guys on big bikes doing adventure for 5 days. That's a really tough time because, as Martin said, when we film, we need to ride the trek, which is a 5-day trek, but we need to film doing the trek. So we need to do the turns 3 times, 4 times, going back and forth and stop and here and there. So very long days. So it's very good for all product testing. I think, Martin, you're doing product testings as well on the ACT, not only content creation, no?
Absolutely. And for me, just talking back about the helmet topic, you take off the helmet probably 20, 30 times a day there. You use the communication devices in a group of 12 to 15 people. You need to talk to the media crew. You need to talk with each other to really stay continuously in the loop with each other. And also with the products and the bikes, of course, we try to have our TourTech products on the new bikes available as let's say, prototypes or something like this. So, of course, we're trying to test it. Then we try to make sure that every one of these industry players getting their share of video footage and their share of pictures. And of course, this is sometimes a little bit complicated. So we try to make sure that there's not too much competition in it. Nevertheless, we want to have all partners join. Maybe just one topic when we started, and I think we're still trying to make that happen currently, is that we're trying to differentiate between the foundation work and the projects that we do with the films. So the members that pay membership fee to the foundation, this money is mainly used for the work of the foundation, meaning that we're trying to keep the tracks alive, to maintain the tracks, to talk to local people, to talk to the municipalities, to the mayors, to the landlords, all that kind of stuff. And the money that we are getting as support, as sponsorship from the industry is used to present the movie, to present the track, to present the products. So really trying to make a difference here. Some people say it is advertising, what we're doing there. And yes, partly it is, because we do try to give photos and videos to those partners that are with us. In the movie, we try to mix that quite between all of the partners, because it is really right. I mean, there is no fake. There is no putting bikes on a truck and doing whatever. We have crashes. We have things that don't work, and they all need to be solved within these 5 to 7 days.
I think that's quite important to understand. When we founded everything, we gave all these memberships. There was no real membership. People could contribute with money, but they don't need it to. But in the meantime, we grew a lot. So we have around 5,000 to 6,000 emails a year, which should be answered. And they complain if you don't answer within 48 hours, you get a complaint already. You need someone to take care about all those memberships and community stuff. So when we decided to change this into only payable memberships for 11 euros a year, which is 99 cents a month for this work, there was quite some feedback and questionnaires online, because people would say, but you have all those sponsors, so you're getting rich. No, we're not getting rich, and we still don't take any money out of it, because to create a movie 5 days in a big group with transport of bikes, with the bikes itself, the preparation, the tires, the hotels, everything you need, that's a big amount of money, and this is paid by those sponsors. And I think it's a given and taken, because by having the partners joining and paying for the movie, the ACT can stay alive and we all can ride. It's a given and taken. It wouldn't work without this commercial aspect.
You should do a podcast. It's incredibly profitable. The amount of money that I earn doing this, absolutely none. A lot of projects like this that you do as a passion, that you do for fun, you never actually make any money out of them, but you have a lot of fun doing them, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's 7-8 years now that we're putting work into this. The work has been done pretty much between Elvio, Mirko, and me during the first years, beside our jobs. Luckily, now we have help from guys like Jonathan and others that are helping and supporting here. Also, it's just for the last 12 months that we do get help from somebody who is paid half time to really answer all these emails, because it just got crazy in the last 2 or 3 years. But yeah, it is on top of our normal jobs, and on the weekends. We even put money into this a few years back to make that happen. And I think it is something that will keep us as companies alive, because without off-road riding opportunities, TourTech will have to bring all the people to Africa to make it happen. And not everybody's able to ride around the world or ride the Americas or ride the Africas. For our customers, it is important to have this kind of adventure right in front of your door.
I think this is a really important point. I know in magazines, articles you've probably written, Jonathan, people often ask, why isn't the industry doing more to support the access that we need? I know it's very different in the UK than it is anywhere else, but the Trail Riders Fellowship, the TRF, does an awful lot of lobbying for us, and there's often cries for industry to support and help maintain the access that we have, and maybe even to increase the access we have.
He's quite right. Attitudes are slowly changing. If you take the UK market, for a long time, I've been back in the UK since 2003 within the industry with journalism, and always within little bit of enduro and into adventure and stuff. And I used to talk to the industry about funding. One of the responses used to be, we give ours to this motocross team, they take all our money. Or we give it to this enduro team, that takes all our money. There was no recognition of the trail stroke adventure market at all. They sold the bikes and that was the end of the involvement. Really, it's only been the last decade, isn't it? And it's sort of gathered momentum. At the beginning of the decade, I wouldn't say it was that big, but even as the TRF, thankfully, having really detailed discussions now with the manufacturers' representatives, Yamaha, Triumph, people like this, and they are jumping on board and recognizing this need to maintain access, if you like, just to help that market. And they realize now that maybe they could lose their livelihoods if we don't keep that going. For instance, as you say, you brought in the TRF there. ACT UK wouldn't have been possible without the TRF. The work they've done on the Green Road map, the work that's done on the ground with the 40 groups, the 8,000 members, to help identify and maintain and keep open the green roads, as they call them here. Without that, we needed that knowledge base as a start point for ACT UK. Developed off that, we all stand on the shoulders of each other, don't we, to manage to do these things. For sure, I went to the TRF very early on this project and said, the ACT team are really keen to come over here. Please confirm my feelings, my aspirations that we can do this. We can have an ACT UK. And they said yes, and yes, they would support. And not only them, but, Yamaha UK come on board. There was quite a few people that actually sort of opened their eyes to it and understanding. And I think it's only going to grow, actually. Even as I speak now, I'm having discussions right now with companies in the UK who are really starting to wake up to it and see that this growth, adventure just doesn't stop growing. These guys know, don't you? We keep thinking it's going to peak, but it just keeps going. It's a fantastic thing. Very exciting.
The organization that is like the TRF there in the UK, I wish we had that in other countries, and that the cooperation between the off-road cars, especially the adventure guys, not the racing guys, but the vans sometimes, the 4x4 vans or the Land Rovers and all these guys, they would work with us more jointly on keeping those tracks maintained and alive, because I think we have the same idea, we have the same goal, we have the same spirit. If we respect each other and help each other, then we can try to keep that stuff alive.
It does seem to me, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, that the more people that are involved in our hobby or sport, the better it has to be, because it increases the number of people, it increases the lobbying power, it increases vested interest. Not only is the ACT a really valuable thing for us as riders, but I think getting corporations involved as well has to be a really positive thing.
I think it's something that people have been looking for quite a while now. I know there's been a big increase in people riding sort of adventure bikes and things in the UK and wondering where they can go, what they can use them for. Maybe finding that some of the small tracks are too technical and they want constantly, you see on the forums, people asking each other, I've got this bike, where can I go? And it's quite hard for people to recommend until something like this comes along. When
we had our discussion for the next country, the idea of UK came up, and it was a very interesting discussion internally, because it was like the half of the team would say, well, no, why UK? There are no mountains, there's nothing, why should we go there? And the other half would say, oh, let's go there. Surprisingly, we just made a small announcement today. The UK is one of the most successful treks we had so far. The movie reached today 440,000 views within 4 months.
Wow.
That's incredible. We have a reach of 6.9 million people with this video. It's crazy. And I personally enjoyed the UK a lot. But I also like the country, and I like the style of the country. If people were expecting, the Pyrenees atmosphere, no, you will not get that in the UK. But you will get a good Guinness, and you will get lovely treks and lots of sheep.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the end of the UK film when you were in the pub discussing the things that you enjoyed. And it's always really interesting. I know that Clive and Noel had Rohit Tollfield Traveller on the podcast recently, and some of his observations coming to the UK, seeing things from a different perspective, it's always really good. I really enjoyed that in the film when you were chatting in the pub about the things you enjoyed.
The drywalls. The guy who did all the drywalls.
Just that one guy. Ironically, that pub was about 10 miles from my house.
What we're trying to do is we're trying to give an idea, a hint of the adventure. The adventure always starts when you start into the unknown. I mean, you can spend like being fast on those tracks and make it in 3 days. We do have that in the Pyrenees or in Portugal, people who rush through. Also, there we have a lot of guys or members who do that in 14 days, and they do go to the right and to the left, and they do some sightseeing in between, and they also take a map and try to find their own tracks there. And I mean, with the tracks that Jonathan mentioned, the green lanes or green roads, I'm sure there's plenty of roads that we didn't use because they were either too technical or too wet in that season or whatever. So as long as you use the legal tracks, that's our mission a bit. We are happy if you go right, and this is not the end of the story. I mean, this is just to give people an idea and an easy adventure, let's say, because they can follow the track. If they want to experience their own track, if they want to find their own tracks, we're happy to support that and to see them doing that.
And of course, they can also combine the ACT with some of the tech tracks. You could ride the ACT and then maybe feel a little bit more adventurous and braver and try some of the a lot of the tech is of course quite easy to ride as well, but more challenging in other places. And that brings me up to a question. So how do people actually get hold of the ACT tracks? What website do they need to go to? What do they need to do to actually download the various tracks that are available?
The website is adventurecountrytracks.com. You can see the countries, you can see the description of the tracks, you can see recommendation of hotels, restaurants, repair shops, whatever. You can watch the movies. And if you would like to do this, you can join the foundation. As mentioned before, we have this membership called Bronze Membership. It's €11.88 a year, and you will receive a really nice bronze color membership sticker, which you can't see on the podcast, but I can tell you it looks amazing. We also have member cards and a little bit of a welcome package, and then you can download the track. And of course, you can also become part of our community to look for people to co-ride, because we always say don't go by yourself. Easy drop of the bike can break your ankle or something, and then there's nothing you can do. So always go in a group so people can meet, to find each other, to go there. They can get help for preparation. They can ask questions about tires, about equipment, about how to use the track, which device, and so on. So it's a whole package when you join the club to prepare yourself to go on this. And I just wanted to mention one more thing. Our main goal is to get most motorcycle brands into this, to reduce the overall amount and make sure that every brand is participating on this future project, to make sure that we can ride for a long future, but not only for content creation. A lot of brands also joining us for the passion that we all share, which is the riding.
If anybody complains about spending €12 on membership, you're in the wrong bloody sport.
I will forward those guys to you now.
Well, they're not allowed to listen to the podcast anymore. They're outlawed.
I was quite keen to know if any of you have ridden it on smaller bikes as well.
We were using the bikes that the partners are giving us that they want to promote. But of course, sometimes we were using our private bikes because not all of the bikes are enough that are given by the partners. So we've used the Husqvarna 901. We have Roderick from Revit is using his 701 Husqvarna. I think one of the first rides we had a KTM 690, but we didn't use smaller bikes. That is mainly not because we don't like them. It's mainly because also the gasoline reach is an important point, the distance. So we try to gas up once a day. We do not really have time. I mean, you can imagine if you want to make a nice shot and you want to make it for all of these different brands. So Touratech wants to have his share, Revit wants to have a share, then only Yamaha riders, only Harley riders. So everybody wants to have his own little video. So very often we do the same few hundred meters 5-6 times when there is a very special location. So it is 12 to 14 hours riding days. This is where you need probably the reach of a gas tank with 200-300 kilometers. So this is the main reason why we didn't use the smaller bikes. we should show the people it is possible with these big bikes. I mean, not all of us are excellent riders. I'm very honest on this. If you talk about Niels from Harley, he has been first time off-road when he was using his Pan Am, and he managed great. He did two trainings before and he managed great. He dropped it 2 or 3 times. That was all fine. I always drop it once or twice during the trip, although I'm doing that for many years. You should be able to do that as a normal experienced rider. So there's nothing for beginners. I mean, that must be clear. Very often when we call it beginners, it is a big discussion. What is a beginner? What is not a beginner? Even if you're good on road doesn't mean that you can be a beginner off-road. So you should have some off-road experience. That's for sure. And as Mirko said, never go alone. But most of us are medium off-road riders, and we can manage it. And within the group, you sometimes see a part that is just a few hundred meters that is very difficult, and you just try to help each other through it. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a water crossing, or especially in the UK, some of the deep ruts really gave us a hard time, big stony areas. I mean, you drop the bike, it's made for that. You need to pick it up and continue. That's like in real life adventure riding. Mirko knows that. If you drop your bike somewhere in Cañón del Pato in Peru or something, you need to have a bike capable of being dropped and being picked up and continue. And sometimes you have to repair some stuff, or you get a puncture, or you need to bend back the parts on the bike, or you need to repair the pannier, or whatever there happens. But that is part of the adventure. It is not 100% covered, fully insured. I make sure there's a mechanic and doctor included package. It is an adventure, and that is what I would like people to understand going there. If you want to do that, we have tour companies that we're working with. Then you can have the fully insured package. But we prefer people to go there with friends and just really experiencing that 5 days adventure out there.
So we love beginners, don't we, Adam? I've seen Adam fall off 3 times in the space of about 12 meters, let alone
happens.
5 days. Show us your right arm.
It's not usually this bad.
For people listening in black and white, Adam's got his right arm in a plaster cast at the moment.
But yeah, I think all that you were saying comes across in the films. I mean, you leave it all in there, you know, the straightening out your panniers after a fall. I think you've even got someone breaks a rib in the film at one point, one of your guys.
It's real. We just had a group of guys going the UK trek last week, and one of the guys broke his ankle on the second day or something because of the ruts. The ruts are very difficult. To be honest, that's something which scares me as well, because there is no room for mistakes. You just need to be straight.
They catch you by surprise, don't they? The other question I wanted to ask was, how did planning the routes in each different country go? Was there any particular countries that were difficult? Was the UK particularly difficult? Are there any countries that were particularly easy?
Depending who you ask.
I've got to say, the UK is very difficult for big bikes. We know we have a limited network. It's not really a network, is it? It's a disjointed network, if there ever was. We have just bits here and there that we have to put together. You have to make a decision where you're going to go. As the scout based in the UK, I sort of had to discount areas which were, you know, like if we went to the West Country, there's a bit of a dead end effect, because you go down there and then you come back out. And, you know, it's quite soft soil there. We could go to Thetford, but then you're miles from anywhere. And although sand is okay, it's not that good for big bikes. The choice was to try and find hard pack to ride on, because that's best for adventure bikes. The one thing with ACT, every ACT tells you a story of the country that you ride in. It's not good enough just to ride down between 2 hedges because there's a little lane down there, because that doesn't enhance the experience. The decision was to look at the higher tracks. 1, they drain quick. 2, they're hard. And 3, they offer you the views. The track was designed with the view to tell a story about the UK, so that not just for the British as well as for our continental friends, so that they would see that we actually have almost wilderness, and that they would see that we have natural beauty, and it's not just an overpopulated country of island monkeys, as we're often known. One of the things that we have with the UK particularly is short tracks, and maybe 90% of that track is lovely, but 10% will be gnarly, wouldn't it? There'll be some kind of a stopper involved. And I know from the first scouting, I set the course, if you like, on the computer using GRM and other mapping things, and then started riding them. And the first day was a nightmare. 90% of the tracks were unusable for our purposes. You know, and thought this is going to be a really big job. Fortunately, after that, things improved markedly as we moved on. You know, my experience of, you know, riding in Spain and Portugal and stuff is these beautiful boulevards. You ride tracks that go for miles with great continuity, with fairly moderate technicality. But English tracks are not like that. It was scary, wasn't it, chaps? Because we had, I sent some videos back, and then we had Felipe, our chief scout, came over. Yeah, I sent him, flying a few times, picked him up, and then he was, is this really doable? And we did have to debate it, didn't we? And it was, I know exactly where Felipe comes from on this, because he's done the previous tracks and there's a standard. And in the end, we did sort of compromise on it and suggested that this is ACT of a slightly higher standard. If you're an absolute newbie and you've just done a wee bit here and there, something like Portugal is a much better start point for your capabilities. The English one does ask a bit of you.
But it doesn't look like. That's the thing. It doesn't look like. It looks like the easier one with, the less off-road percentage. And it just looks easier. But no, it's not.
I think you should stop describing it as terrifying, because you're going to put Bruce off doing it. We don't want that.
No, it's great.
It's a lot of fun, and that's the main part that people need to understand. I mean, first of all, it needs to be an adventure, and we really want to create an adventure, so it's not the 100% insured package. But on the other hand, if people take it easy and they go slow and they have a good sense, then everybody can make it. And if you have to push your bike through something, you have to push your bike through them. A big ego always get hurt here, because if you're top 10% of rider, you probably find that fairly easy. But for 90% of the riders, there isn't one of these obstacles in between where you're really fighting. And this is where you want to get off. You want to check out the track before you ride it. And then you want to find your line and you want to make it. And you reach the end of the day and you have some kind of achievement. And this is what you want to celebrate with a beer, and part of the adventure, I think. And this is also part when you go on a real trip. If you go for a year or two or more, every day is an adventure, because you're going out there and you don't know what's going to happen. This is why we also suggest very often people to take camping gear, because there are places out there where it's spectacular to camp, where you have a wonderful countryside, where it's allowed to do so, and you probably want to stay there for the night. Maybe not on all of the days, but maybe you want to cut short a day and stay in one of these beautiful places somewhere in the middle of nowhere and enjoy the night under the stars. This is what people should keep in mind when they start going on this trek. Another thing I still wanted to mention in the end is when it comes very often the question, how are you choosing your countries and how are you choosing the tracks? And there is a big difference when you come to countries like UK that are, let's say, well developed. People always ask, why don't you go to Albania or to Turkey or Georgia or whatever? The main difference is, if there are tracks legal in the UK, they are very likely to stay legal for a long period of time. There are not that as many, but they are legal and they stay like that. So we can make sure that we are not riding anything illegal. In the other countries, let's say Albania or Macedonia, all these countries, very often there are a lot more tracks that you could ride, but either they are being cut down by the government or they are paved by the European Union. Each of those things doesn't really help for us to keep the spirit alive. And our work already now is hard work, because we try to not only get the feedback from the people who ride those tracks and maintain the tracks and understand and update that stuff, but also at least once, sometimes every 2 years, but very often every year, we need to send a professional rider going on that track to make sure that things are still open, still allowed, and still okay. And Mirko, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the Pyrenees track we had to update 7 times in the meantime, because there were still restrictions by national park rangers and national park communities that are getting stricter and stricter. So we really try to make sure these tracks are 100% legal.
This is why it's important that the riders really read our code of conduct, because I think it's very important that we behave the right way, that we respect the nature, the animals, the locals, stay on the track and all this. Otherwise, they will just shut down parts of the tracks, and this is what we need to avoid. We get 1 point more to the durability. First of all, every ACT track is doable for someone who has already ridden off-road. Every track. There is no track which you can't do. For us, it's really difficult to rate those tracks. So this is why our rating should not be overrated. It is important to get a little bit of an adjustment, but we figured out that tracks that we find very easy other people don't find easy, and the opposite. It's much about what surface you like the most. Some people like more the loose stuff, other people like more the packed stuff, then other people like it go more fast, other people like more the slow technical parts. It's really hard to define how difficult it is. But on the end, I would say every ACT is doable with a little bit of a skill off-road. I remember we had people going Portugal and Italy with very little experience in a group, and they all made it. Was it difficult sometimes? Yes, but they all made it. They were all happy, sweated at the end, exhausted, but they really enjoyed this adventure. And I think this is what it's for. For the UK trek, just one comment from my side. For me, the most surprise was the Isle of Man. I was not expecting such great off-road riding on this, motor racing spirit island. It was just amazing. And of course, the road up to Victory Cafe, where are no speed limits. That's quite nice too.
I think the ACT is a fantastic thing. You've opened up a whole world to people that have bought a bike, had no idea where they can go and ride, and now they've got 6 fantastic routes worked out for them, and obviously that, as you've mentioned, that network is expanding as well. So thank you on behalf of everybody. It's a great thing you've done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we love the people going out there and share the passion with us.
And as this is the UK podcast mainly, I would like to say thank you to the UK riders, because the support we got from the UK after releasing the UK trek was phenomenal. Right now, I think we have 25% of our members are from the UK. From our end, thank you for the support to the UK riders, because this is phenomenal.
There you go. Everything you ever needed to know about the ACT. Massive thanks to the guys. Really useful stuff. Let us know if you're making plans to go and ride the ACT. And if you get in touch with the guys, let them know we sent you. That email address, one more time, it's adventurecountrytracks.com. All right. See you next time. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.